How you doing, guys and girls? Hope you're well wherever in the world you are. I'm coming to you today from Bosnia, a country I never necessarily expected to ever visit. I'm in a place called Mostar up in the mountains, and the last couple of days we went to Sarajevo, which was just extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary place to visit. If you ever get a chance to go there, the tragedy, the beauty, just the scale of human suffering is staggering, and it puts everything into perspective. But I digress. Yesterday in a cafe, and if either of those four people or any of those four people that I'm about to speak about ever watch this video or stumble across this video, I hope I've done the conversation justice in advance, and I'm not even sure, no matter what I say, I can do the conversation justice. And nor am I trying to expose the people. So we met these four people randomly who were from New York yesterday in a cafe, and my daughter was with me, and she was cringing because it came up around, you know, what I do professionally and the idea of joy and misalignment and so on and so forth. And it was amazing to me that all four of these people are recent graduates working in the area of computer science and finance, essentially. And all four of them are contemplating, you know, career changes, albeit in such an early phase of their life. In other words, they have studied really hard to get to a certain place. They've all acquired jobs in those different industries, and they're starting to feel that, holy shit, maybe I've made a mistake, or maybe this is not for me, or maybe I just don't have joy doing what I'm doing. And the sense of justification why they should stay where they are is quite profound. And just on a side note, you know, a lot of us, when it comes to this, a lot of us either embrace a conversation like this, or we feel that we're being judged, that I'm for some reason attacking you or picking on you because you're in a job or an industry or a business that you don't like. And you're taking it all personally, and you're getting pissy because I'm presenting this idea, this possibility that perhaps something more aligned, something more meaningful, something more magical, something that'll bring you and the world alive, and something that you can be successful with, whether that's money or whether it's societal gratification or whatever it happens to be, just lies outside of what it is that you currently do. And to me, we shouldn't get pissy about that. We should just be open to that conversation and be curious about what that possibility might be. And the conversation was really interesting, and I said, is it okay if I ask you all a question? And they said, yeah. And I said, what if you weren't allowed to do what you do, which is a kind of a fun, silly, almost a really profound, simple game that I often play with people. What if you're simply not allowed to do what you do professionally? What is it that you would do? And they're all highly intellectual, very kind of heady, and I say that with respect, not judgment. And some of the sentiment was towards, well, if I didn't do this, the obvious next thing would be this industry because it's somewhat aligned. And I said, no, don't go into your head about this. But if you just felt into it, and it was something that was to bring you joy, and that you would find a way to make it successful, whether it's financially or otherwise, what would you do? And the first lady essentially was talking about being more of an influencer, like being somebody who basically would bring a message or a series of messages to the world. And part of that was to support young people. The second gentleman, much to their surprise, said he'd be a child psychologist. The third person, who was a gentleman, said that he would actually work with his hands. He would make furniture, make something out of wood. And the fourth person, if I can come, what was she? Oh God, I can't remember. Yeah, it was something again in the space of helping people. But in the end, she had something even way simpler than that. And my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting this. Anyway, it was something along the lines of, you know, running an Airbnb or running a small bed and breakfast or something along those lines. In other words, something quite a U-turn away from what it is that she had previously said and justified. And I just thought it was fascinating. I said, do you see what's just happened in like a 5 or 10 minute space where I'm trying to have a coffee and my daughter's embarrassed at the fact that her dad is showing her up. And I've just simply asked you a really simple question that's not easy to necessarily answer in one sense, and in another sense is profoundly easy to answer. And what I suggest to people is those answers aren't the answer, but they're certainly a clue into what is it that is important to you. And what I would encourage people to do is to pull the thread. It's not necessarily about being a child psychologist. It's about what that represents. It's not about being an influencer. It's what that speaks to you and where you're not showing up in that capacity and so on. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this, is that the profound precision in which they were able to justify their existence and the continuation of what it is they're doing, the continuation of the misalignment they have in their lives. One of the girls said something, and I'll paraphrase slightly, rather than taking a risk, I'm going to stick with something that's safe. And then I need to work in my mind to make sure that I have gratitude for what it is that I have. And while I wouldn't disagree with the sentiment, and I think it's powerful in its own way, and I admire a little bit of it, to me it's a way of justifying your existence. And sometimes we need to kind of back away from something and contextualize it through something completely non-related to see how absurd, ludicrous, or how dysfunctional it really is. So let me try to do that. Imagine that we did this through the lens of relationships. And that I was to ask this person that, imagine that you were to treat your relationships in the same way. Now, before I go any further, again, I was victim to this. I was the person that would justify to hell and back that what I was doing made sense and that it had some end goal. And the misalignment I could justify all day long because I think it's so prevalent in society. But I wasn't willing to really and truly stop and see where I was misaligned. And sometimes I continue to get misaligned. Sometimes I'm doing work I shouldn't be doing. Sometimes I'm working with people that I have no business working with because they're not aligned to me or I'm not aligned to them. So misalignment keeps popping up, certainly for me. But if we were to go back to this relationship context, imagine that you were to contextualize exactly the same thing through the lens of a relationship. For some, you might think it's ludicrous. For others, you'll get the point. You say, well, actually, it's such a simple way of reframing something, and it allows me to see it with a clearer lens. But if we were to think about it like that, then that lady would be sitting there going, yeah, I'm going out with this guy, and we live together. Now, I don't love him. But I really think it's the safest bet for me. And what I'm going to do is focus on being grateful for the man that I don't love. And all the things that he does that bring me joy, which are probably very little, and all the things that piss me off. I'm just going to find the best in all of that. And I'm going to put up with that. And what's interesting about contextualizing it in a different frame is that often we actually see the dysfunction in it when we do that. Because no one in the right mind would do that. No one in the right mind would do that, even though you might have found yourself doing that at one point, probably because you're more scared of being on your own, so you'd rather be with somebody that doesn't serve you and doesn't bring you alive than actually be on your own. So the invitation today is to think about where you're out of alignment, because I believe the cost is too big to be out of alignment in any capacity of your life, both for you personally and for the people around you and for the greater good as it relates to the world. I think we need more people aligned and therefore more people alive more than ever before. Take care.